Hello, Stephen Carter here, your host for the Healthy and Happy Senior Living Show. I am so glad you've chosen to join us. Who is this show for? If you are a senior who wants to live their best life possible, stay healthy, keep informed about the latest developments in medical breakthroughs, and are keen to learn about all news related to seniors and our well-being, this show is for you. If you are a caregiver for a senior, whether that is for a family member, a close friend, or you are a professional caregiver, this show is also for you. For our first article, we go to medicalexpress.com and an article published January 25, 2023, headline, 5 reasons to check on your elderly neighbor during a heat wave. 5 reasons to check on your elderly neighbor during a heat wave. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, you may say to yourself, well, hold on, Steve, this is wintertime. And indeed it is wintertime for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, but this is for those in the Southern Hemisphere, and in just a few short weeks, you know how time flies. We are going to be at the beginning of summer, and the information that is contained in this article, well, that's going to be important for us as well in the Northern Hemisphere. 5 reasons to check on your elderly neighbor during a heat wave. Lead paragraph, we all know someone who insists on wearing a cardigan in summer or refuses to turn on the air conditioner because it's not that hot. Close quote. Chances are this is an older person, and there's a good reason for that. As we get older, we tend to not feel the heat as much, even though our bodies are less able to handle the heat. This contradiction can have lethal consequences, especially during extreme heat. So why is extreme heat so dangerous for older people? And what can we do to help? Here are some facts in this story. Extreme heat kills more Australians than all other natural hazards. And people age 60 or older account for 69% of those deaths. There are 5 key reasons you and I are more susceptible to heat as we get older. Reason number 1, bodily changes. One of the main ways we lose excess heat, one of the main ways you and I lose excess heat is blood flowing to our skin isn't as effective as we get older. This is in part because the blood vessels in our skin do not expand fast enough, and we may have less blood pumping with each beat of our heart. Many other changes in our bodies also lead us to gain and store more heat as we get older. These include how our bodies control sweat and how well our kidneys balance fluid, which they're both important for staying cool. Reason number 2, social isolation. Loneliness and social isolation are health risks on their own, but they also multiply the risk of heat-related illness, and the section goes on to explain why. Reason 3, beliefs and behaviors. Older Australians may not respond to heat in ways that protect their own health and well-being. Australian culture tends to view heat tolerance as a matter of resilience and identity, where there's a sense of generational pride in being able to cope with the heat. Reports also suggest many older people have concerns about the cost of air conditioning, and as a result, they may be hesitant to use it. Reason 4, medical issues. Many chronic illnesses that are more common with age are also associated with an increased risk for heat-related illness. Because blood flow is so important for regulating our body temperature, It's not surprising that conditions such as heart failure and diabetes are associated with increased heat risk. Medications that are prescribed for chronic illness, well, they can also play a role. And reason 5, home environment. It's increasingly difficult for older Australians to find affordable and appropriate housing, especially pensioners and renters. Poor home design, lack of insulation, inability to pay their energy bills, and limited income, well, these all can contribute to being vulnerable to heat-related illness. The article goes on to talk about what mitigation can be used. These can include using a fan, which is effective, especially when it's humid, but it may not be enough when it's very hot and dry. If you have an air conditioner, consider using it. Next, knowing the conditions inside your home by installing thermometers that ideally also measure humidity so you know which ways will work best to cool down. Opening windows facing away from the sun when it's cooler outside. Otherwise, keep blinds closed. Take cool showers. Apply damp cloth to the back of your neck. That can be helpful. Take regular small drinks of water, even when you're not thirsty. One caveat here, if you have a heart or kidney problems, you must talk to your medical doctor before you ingest a whole bunch of water. Talk to your doctor to find out what is the ideal amount of hydration you should be taking. Know the signs of heat exhaustion and heat stroke. The article goes on to suggest keep an eye on older relatives, friends, and neighbors. Keep in touch. Keeping in touch is great protection from heat-related illness. And I would suggest if you're a caregiver, if you're not directly living in the same home, check in with those who you are caring for at least once a day. If an older person can't keep the house cool, how about a day trip to a cooler place, such as a library, movie theater, shopping center? Encourage them to talk to their doctor about how medical conditions or medications might increase their risk of heat. Again, please don't assume just because you may look out your window and see snow that this does not apply to you, because in a few weeks it will apply. It will apply to those of us in the northern hemisphere. It is vital to maintain the proper amount of hydration. It's vital to keep our living space as cool as we need to keep it to stay healthy and avoid heat stroke and other heat-related conditions. As always, I will have this article linked up in the show notes, as well as all articles that I share in this episode. These will all be linked in the show notes. So let's move from summer issues to winter issues. In the January 25, 2023 edition of medicalexpress.com, we have an article with the headline, Walk Like a Penguin, Keeping Your Winter Balance. Walk like a penguin, keeping your winter balance. Lead paragraph, when winter storms hit, good balance can prevent falls and injuries ranging from broken arms, legs, hips to back injuries and concussions. The National Center for Injury Prevention and Control tells us slips and falls are the leading cause of non-fatal injury across all age groups, except for those in the 10 to 24-year-old group. 1 in every 5 falls results in a serious injury, such as head trauma or broken bones. There are more than 800,000 people hospitalized each year. More than 800,000 people hospitalized each year. To remain upright and steady, the even distribution of weight over your feet is vital. Many parts of your body play key roles in your balance. Muscles, bones, joints, eyes, the balance organ in your inner ear, nerves, heart, blood vessels, all must work normally to maintain your balance. When these systems are not functioning well, balance problems can arise. And the article goes on, your arms are one of the greatest aids in maintaining your balance, especially when it's icy. Start with your hands and wear gloves. Gloves keep your hands warm and out of your pockets. Keep your hands out of your pockets. This frees up your arms so you can extend them out from your sides to improve your ability to stay upright. Assume all wet, dark areas on pavements are slippery and icy. Slow down. Take short, careful steps at first, and then adjust your pace to surface conditions. Or walk like a penguin. Point your feet slightly outward and put your center of gravity directly over your feet as much as possible. Other tips: use a backpack or crossbody bag when carrying something to free up your hands. If you need to carry groceries in a bag, carry them one bag at a time. Wear winter-assisted devices with built-in grippers over your shoes or boots. Or wear lace-up shoes that fit well and have deep-grooved, non-skid rubber treads. Wipe your shoes and boots thoroughly on the floor mats when coming inside. Use a cane or walking poles when out in winter weather. This next one goes without saying, but yet it doesn't. Avoid texting. Avoid texting, or for that matter, using your cell phone when walking on snow or ice. When getting in and out of your vehicle, get in and out slowly. Hold on to the door and steering wheel while stepping on or off a slippery surface. If you do fall, make sure you're not injured. Then roll onto your hands and knees. Take one foot, place it between your hands, then bring the other foot between your hands. Keep your feet shoulder-width apart. Push yourself up from there. If you think you might be hurt or unsure if an injury is serious, seek medical care immediately. Once you've recovered, think back on the fall and ask yourself, what was I doing and what could I have done differently to help prevent that fall from happening? All of this information is provided by Mayo Clinic, and it is reported through medicalexpress.com. Again, this article will be linked in the show notes. As we age, one of the fears many of us have is the fear of Alzheimer's, the fear of dementia, cognitive impairment risks. In a January 25, 2023 article in medicalexpress.com, headline, More Steps, Moderate Physical Activity Can Cut Dementia, Cognitive Impairment Risk. Lead paragraph, senior women are less likely to develop mild cognitive impairment or dementia if they do more daily walking and moderate to vigorous physical activity, according to a new study. Lots of good information in this article, again linked in the show notes. In medical news today, headline, What to Know About the 4 Stages of Osteoporosis. Osteoporosis develops when bone density decreases in a person's body. The condition progresses in 4 stages, during which the bones become weaker and more prone to fractures. People refer to osteoporosis as a silent bone disease because there are usually no symptoms. As a result, individuals may not know that they have the condition. The article goes on to describe each of the 4 stages and the situation around diagnosis of osteoporosis. Unfortunately, in early stages of the condition, diagnosis can be a challenge. Is there a cure for osteoporosis? According to this article, there is no cure for osteoporosis, but treatment can help to slow or stop the loss of bone density and reduce the risk of fractures. This may involve medications, diet changes, exercise, and steps to prevent fracturing a bone. According to the National Institutes of Health, once a person's bone density has declined, treatment cannot fully reverse it, but it can protect a person's bone health going forward. If osteoporosis runs in your family, if that condition has a history in your family, or for whatever reason you believe you may be at risk, I encourage you to seek medical advice, a medical diagnosis as soon as possible. The earlier you can engage treatment, the better outcomes you are likely to have. Our final story, and this is such a sad situation. This story from People magazine, people.com, headline, 36-year-old woman accused of using romance scam to swindle $2.8 million. That's $2.8 million from elderly Holocaust survivor. A Florida woman has been arrested for defrauding an 87-year-old Holocaust survivor of nearly $3 million, authorities announced Wednesday. The article gives her name. She is 36, of Champions Gate, Florida, and she's been charged with one count of wire fraud after allegedly coercing millions from an unnamed Manhattan man between 2017 and 2021. The FBI agent providing the announcement tells us, quote, the defendant callously preyed on a senior citizen simply seeking companionship. The defendant callously preyed on a senior citizen simply seeking companionship, defrauding him of his life savings. Closed quote. And that's by Special Agent Michael J. Driscoll. This woman met the victim on a dating website about 6 or 7 years ago, and upon getting the trust of this gentleman, she told the victim, according to the indictment, she told the victim that she had settled a lawsuit involving injuries in a car accident, but her lawyer would not release the settlement funds until he received a certain amount of money. In May 2017, bank records show the victim wrote his first check to this woman for $25,000, and of course the fraud continued until she managed to defraud him of nearly $3 million. One of the challenges of these kinds of cases, and incidentally, my background in part is in law enforcement. I was a police officer, a detective, a police chief, and I was also the corporate security director for one of the major financial institutions in the world. So I've had many firsthand experiences with these sorts of cases. One of the challenges with these sorts of cases is victims will not report the loss, or they will lie about how much money they've lost because they're embarrassed. Once they fully realize they've been had, they've been victimized, they are very reluctant to report it to law enforcement or share the information with family members or other loved ones because they are so embarrassed about the situation. These kinds of scams are unfortunately more common than you might realize. If you have been victimized, please report it to law enforcement authorities. You may be helping someone else avoid what happened to you. If you're a caregiver, pay attention to who your loved one or the person you're responsible for, pay attention to who they're interacting with, who they're exchanging emails with, who they're talking to by phone. These criminals, and that's what they are, these criminals are constantly looking for victims who are simply looking for companionship, looking to interact with people who they believe care about them, Which brings us back to, if you're a senior and you feel lonely, reach out to other people around you. Get involved in social activities. That may mean, if your health allows, going to senior centers. It may mean engaging in community activities, talking on a regular basis with family members. These are the people who truly care about you. The 20-something, 30-something, or even 40-somethings who may claim they care about you, at the very first inkling that they ask for money, that is your first red flag, and that should be the only red flag you need to shut that relationship down. So there you are. Those are our stories for this episode. As I mentioned, you'll find all of these articles linked in the show notes. If you would like to reach me for any reason, my email address is cartermethod@gmail.com. If you have not yet subscribed or you're not following the Healthy and Happy Senior Living Show, I encourage you to go ahead and follow or subscribe where you get your podcasts. That way you will never miss an episode. Until our next visit together, your host here, Stephen Carter, wishing for you and your loved ones blessings in abundance.